Vegas based Mexican dynamo, the golden boy, Daniel Zellhuber, gets a big step up in competition. Coming up this weekend, he's taking on two-time UFC fighter. Yes, that's right. It's the Spartan Christos Giagos, a guy who's fought a Shark Tank of opponents, if you really consider it.
Do you have a Christos Giagos moment that stands out in your head? Because oddly enough, I do have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know who Charles Oliveira set the record for most submissions in the UFC against? He did it against Giagos, who just made his return the second time around in the UFC, and that's something that a lot of people might not make a big deal about, but that's a pretty good name to have as a submission win on your record.
Yeah, Christos Giagos, well, yeah, or loss, I guess, but for Christos Giagos, kind of like from My Morning Jacket's The Waterfall 2, yeah, I got that one on vinyl, like the song, Still climbing the ladder, still paying my dues. Christos Giagos, representing Kopylov FC, is going to be one of those guys. I mean, he was able to get a win over Sean Soriano and then uproot his life from California to train with Sean Soriano at Kopylov in Florida. And since that time, well, Giagos went on to lose a few fights. He lost to Armin Tsarukyan and Thiago Moises. And in the Moises fight, he kind of cracks, it looks like. Moises, he's got a little bit of a cut to the side of his head. Moises kind of grapples to the point where he gets the back, he gets the choke in, and it's like a no-hook neck crank. I went back and watched it today. Giagos taps, that's the end of the fight. But Giagos, last time out there, he's taking on Ricky Glenn, and by gosh, he cold-cocked him, and he hits him, and then Glenn springboards, and it's a knockout. So a performance bonus for Christos Giagos, a guy who has a couple performance bonuses to his ledger. And the big knock against Giagos, and kind of the weird thing about him, especially in that last 4 fight sample size. I know we use 5 on in to decry the last 5 fights, or decry, whatever you want. Maybe we showed it from the rooftops. Maybe my neighborhood's weird that way. But when you look at Christos Giagos, just a 4 fight sample size being the one that I'm talking about, they've all ended before the end of the second round. And that's been a little bit of kind of a pin. If you want to pop the balloon of Giagos, it's, well, when it goes over 3 rounds, you look at his fight, even against Carlton Minus, he starts to get tired in that 3rd round. But for Giagos, a workhorse, he's good at all the things.
He is.
But defensively, he can struggle in some of the things.
This is the problem I've always had with the skill set of Giagos. Because you're right. Is there a single thing he does in the octagon that you really have a problem with? Just when you talk about his skill set. Not really. Like, oh, he's been submitted by Thiago Moises and Charles Oliveira. That doesn't mean you're a bad grappler by any means. And Giagos, to his credit, is a very talented grappler. But the thing about Giagos, though, that I hate is, he's not like a guy who gets tired and still fights like the same fighter. He starts to fight dumb when he's tired, and he won't necessarily do the same things he does when he is 100% energized. Those hands get pretty darn low when he's tired, and he still will walk into a lot of volume, and those have been things that do tend to lose him those 3rd rounds, and that's been my big concern about Giagos. I know he can win the 1st round, I know he can win the 2nd round, and guess what? He can put on a surprisingly high pace for a guy who does have those cardio issues in the 3rd round, and that's why I do think Giagos, more than anything, has a pacing problem. If he could just figure out a way to give 20% of your volume in the 1st and 2nd round and just save those for the 3rd round. Because guess what? You're still probably doing more than enough to get the win in the 1st and 2nd round if he's not getting clipped by a major shot or taken down for a lot of time. Because Giagos, for being as well-rounded as he is, he can struggle against opponents who are specialists of that one area, and we have seen that throughout a lot of his UFC tenure. If you are a very talented boxer on the back foot who can defend a lot of takedowns, well, he is going to have a hard time with you because he can't switch it up and use the other facets of his game. But this fight for Daniel Zellhuber is a very important one, at least for me, because if I was the one making the rankings, or at least in my mind's eye, these are the type of opponents I like prospects to be fighting, right? Giagos has been there.
Like Trey Ogden?
Well, Trey Ogden looked really good, but guess what? His next time out against Lando Venata, who's another wily vet who's been there and done that, like, he looked pretty good in that matchup, and he was able to hurt Lando. I just mean, guys like Lando Venata and Christos Giagos, I think, are the types of opponents that you want prospects to face, because they are well-rounded, they do have holes to their game that are easily recognizable, but if you're able to get a win over types of talent like that, it definitely proves that you deserve a spot in the UFC, and you have a skill set that you can build upon in the future.
The only thing I struggle with, I mean, Daniel Zellhuber, I described him to start the video as dynamo. The kid's got Maine's favorite soda. He's got moxie. And for Zellhuber, it's kind of like that J. Cole song. He has that awesome fight against Lucas Almeida, loses the 1st round. It's a fight of the night style, wins the 2nd, wins the 3rd. And then he goes out there against Trey Ogden, and it's like that tune. I ain't never been here before, yo. I ain't never been here before. He had a little bit of stage fright in his first time out. And for Zellhuber, he couldn't get it up against Trey Ogden. So he ends up losing that fight. And it's weird because if you look at Zellhuber just physically, I know he's young, he's 24. He's got, 2 inches in height and 6 inches of reach in this fight. But against Trey Ogden, he kind of got walked down. He couldn't utilize those gifts that he has. And Zellhuber, if you watched him on the regional scene, he could take guys down. He could utilize no-hook jiu-jitsu. No body lock. And that's kind of one of those things like Josefine Knutsson can do it when she's fighting unranked women's strawweights in her UFC debut. But when you're Daniel Zellhuber and they're giving you a jiu-jitsu black belt in Trey Ogden or Orlando Fernando with his wrestling or Christos Giagos, you can't do that. But for Zellhuber's last time out against Fernando, in tight, he's able to succeed with his boxing. He lands that big knee. Fernando's down, and Jason Herzog, got a move fighter, and he said it a lot, but a lot of the shots hitting the arms, the glove, whatever. But Zellhuber nearly finished Fernando in the first round. In the second round, Fernando finds himself back into the fight, but Zellhuber, the resolve again in that third round, and he gets a decision. I had it 29-28 that way too. So for Zellhuber, in this fight, representing Extreme Couture, Eric Nixick, riding high, he's a big favorite in this one. And we have a look at the Topology votes. Matt, surprised us, say already to you.
I'm really happy for Eric Nixick, by the way. You know, just for a long time was a guy who kind of went behind or under the radar. No one really gave him all the glitz and glamour and stuff, even though he had really great fighters on his roster. So just happy he's getting the recognition he deserves. Side note.
Extreme Couture is today's TriStar MMA. Now, when you look at this one, Matt, again, Zellhuber is favored. We have a look at the Topology votes. Surprised us, there to you.
I think they'll be closer than the odds would suggest, or are you throwing 90% at me?
I'm going to say over under 80% Zellhuber.
I'll say over. Yep. Well, I said under 90, not under 80. Come on.
Yeah, so they're 84%. There's almost 800 votes. 84% Zellhuber. 74% by decision for the 16% that have Giagos. 56% by decision. Give me the underdog, the Spartan Christos Giagos, to get the win. I know it's the unpopular pick in this one, but I think Giagos, with his takedowns, with his forward pressure, he very well could do the old Jamie Mullarkey against Muhammad Naimov. Just zombie his way in. Hands down, looking for that takedown. Like Sam Alvey against, who was it? Marcin Prachniow against Sam Alvey. But for me, I do like Christos Giagos in this fight. And I do like him to kind of push the pace against Daniel Zellhuber.
I just think everything Giagos does is a little bit too wide. That's it. Like all of
fast and loose.
He is fast and loose, you know, he's not worried about it. But for Giagos, when he is having success with his strikes, guys who throw straight shots down the middle can always have success against him.
And Zellhuber has a beautiful jab.
He does. And he's also a better striker up close than you'd probably assume looking at him. Yes, he has all those tools at the long range, but he's got better power up close, I would say, and you bring it up. It allows him to throw the threat and the actual knee up, and that's a big weapon for him, a very powerful one at that. So this is what I'll say about this fight. I have Zellhuber to win this one, but I think he's going to look better than he should in this one and lose the next because the UFC is going to be really hyped up about him, if that makes any sense. They'll say, hey, fight David Tamor next, and that might be like a bit of a step too far. You know, I just think for Zellhuber, he's another one of these fighters that if you just want to talk about the strengths, he has all of them. Like, he is a very talented fighter, but there are some weaknesses there that as he starts to develop a higher level of competition, I could see his opponents starting to exploit them, and that's why this Giagos fight's really fun, because Giagos is so well-rounded, so he'll probably have success in at least one area.
If you want to go out there are great Twitter threads that are made up by Al Zellino over on, Twitter, and he's put out some really good stuff about winners off of Dana White's Contender Series and what their win percentages are. There's been a lot of fighters, so it's not that great. But check that out, Matt. A big-time matchup in this lightweight division. Moving us forward to another heck of a fight once we get to the end of UFC Noche. That title fight up at the top, Grasso taking on Shevchenko. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.